You believe you are here, in this room, listening to this voice. You believe you are a person seeking something called God. This is the assumption I must shatter for you. The presence of God is not a location you can visit. It is not a feeling you can summon. It is not an answer to a prayer you have not yet uttered. To believe this is to remain forever outside the kingdom, a beggar at a gate that does not exist. What you are about to hear will dismantle the very foundation of your search. It will reveal that the seeker and the sought are one. When this truth ceases to be a concept in your mind and becomes the very breath of your being, your world will undergo a revolution. The sense of a separate you will begin to dissolve, not into nothingness, but into an infinite, conscious substance that is the only reality. What happens then? What becomes of your problems, your fears, your very life when this recognition dawns? This is not a teaching to be believed, but an experience to be lived. If your heart is ready to move beyond words and concepts to receive this impartation of spirit, then I invite you to become a part of this sacred assembly. Subscribe to this channel and unite with this living stream of consciousness. Confirm your readiness to walk this path by commenting with the number 47, a symbol of the foundation upon which all true spiritual realization is built. Let us begin by examining the very ground upon which you stand. You have been conditioned to believe that you are an individual, a separate entity, born into a world of other separate entities, and that your primary task in life is to navigate this world, to seek out comfort, avoid pain, and perhaps, if you are spiritually inclined, to search for God. This entire framework, this entire structure of seeking is built upon a single fundamental assumption: that you are the seeker and God is the object you are seeking. This is the grand illusion, the central misunderstanding that perpetuates the sense of lack, of separation, and of endless striving. Consider for a moment the nature of your daily anxieties. You worry about your financial security, about your relationships, about your health, about the future. In each of these concerns, what is the common thread? It is the belief in a you that is vulnerable, a you that can be harmed, a you that can lose what it has or fail to gain what it needs. This you is the central character in a drama of its own making, and it spends every moment in a state of defense or pursuit. It seeks God as the ultimate solution to its problems, the final source of security and comfort for itself. But can you see that this very seeking is what reinforces the problem? The you that is seeking is the very sense of separation you hope to overcome. This is the profound and shocking truth we must confront. The presence of God is not a distant destination for the seeker. It is the very ground of the seeker's own being. The error is not in the desire for God, but in the misplaced identity that believes it is apart from God. Imagine you are a wave upon the ocean. The wave may believe it is a separate, independent entity. It may strive to be a better wave, a more successful wave, a wave that seeks to find the ocean. It may look out across the vast expanse of water and feel a deep longing for union with that great body. Yet, in every moment of its existence, it is entirely constituted by the ocean. Its very substance is ocean. Its energy is the ocean's energy. Its apparent form is a temporary expression of the ocean itself. The search is futile because the seeker is already and eternally that which it seeks. Your own life, in its most mundane moments, provides the evidence for this. Recall an instant of pure, unexpected joy, the sudden laughter of a child, a breathtaking sunset that arrested your thinking mind, a moment of deep peace that settled upon you for no reason at all. In those fleeting instants, what happened to the anxious separate. It vanished. It was not annihilated, but it was subsumed into a larger, more present experience. There was just the joy, just the beauty, just the peace, the sense of a central, controlling I receded into the background. That was not an absence, it was a presence. That was a glimpse of the truth, a moment where the wave consciously experienced itself as the ocean. The spiritual path, then, is not one of acquisition, but of relinquishment. It is not about building a better, more spiritual personal self. It is the unflinching, gentle, and persistent letting go of the belief in that separate self as the ultimate reality. It is to question every thought, every feeling, every impulse that arises from the standpoint of I, me, mine. When a worry about the future arises, can you see it as merely a thought arising in awareness and not as the core truth of who you are? When a desire for something, a possession, a status, even a spiritual experience bubbles up, can you observe it without immediately identifying with it as my desire? This is the inner work. It is the most demanding and the most liberating undertaking of a human life. It requires a profound honesty, a willingness to die to everything you thought you were. The mind will rebel. It will present 1,000 arguments for its own central importance. It will tell you that without this personal identity, nothing will get done. Life will lose its meaning. You will become passive and disengaged. Yet the opposite is true. When the wave realizes it is the ocean, it does not cease to be a wave. It simply expresses its waveness with a freedom and power it never possessed when it believed in its own separation. It is no longer a fragile entity battling other fragile entities, but a unique, dynamic expression of an infinite power. Your daily life becomes the laboratory for this realization. The irritation in traffic, the tension in a meeting, the quiet loneliness of an evening, these are not interruptions to your spiritual life. They are the very gateways. In each of these moments, the question is not, how can I, a separate person, fix this feeling? But what is here when the story of the separate person is quiet? The presence that remains when the seeker ceases its frantic search is what you have been looking for all along. It is a silent, potent, intelligent love that requires no object, because it is the substance of all subjects and all objects. It is the I am that you are. This realization that the seeker is not separate from the sought shatters the very framework of a dualistic universe. It leads us directly to the cornerstone of all spiritual awakening, The understanding that God is not a being among beings, but the only reality and substance. We have been taught to think of God as the greatest thing in existence, the highest entity, but this remains within the realm of duality. If God is the highest thing, then you, as a lower thing, are forever separated from it. This is the subtle trap of theological thinking. The truth is far more radical and absolute. God is not the supreme noun. God is the active, present, and only verb. God is the isness, the very substance of all that appears, the reality behind the form, the life animating the expression. Look at the world around you. You see a table, a tree, another person. Your senses report solid, separate objects. Your mind labels them and interacts with them as independent entities. This is the practical level of living, and it has its place. But spiritual sight penetrates this appearance. It sees that the table is not ultimately a table, but a temporary formation of wood, which was itself a tree, which was itself a composition of elements drawn from the soil and the air, all held in a specific form by a universal, intelligent energy. The tree is not a static object, but a pulsating, living process of growth, respiration, and photosynthesis, a manifesting of an invisible life principle. The person you see is not merely a body and a personality, but a focal point of consciousness, a localized expression of the one, infinite consciousness. The substance of all these forms is not in the forms themselves, but in the living, intelligent presence that constitutes them, sustains them, and ultimately dissolves them. This is not a philosophical abstraction. It is the most practical truth you will ever encounter. Consider a moment of profound creativity, whether you are an artist, a musician, a writer, or a gardener arranging a flower bed. In the moments of purest flow, where does the creation come from? The separate, calculating you recedes. There is no longer a person trying to paint a picture. There is painting happening. The colors choose themselves. The brush moves with an intelligence that seems to come through you, not from you. The music pours forth as if you are the instrument being played. What is the substance of that masterpiece? It is not the paint or the notes. The substance is the creative impulse itself, the invisible inspiration that took form. That creative impulse, that intelligent life, is the only reality in that moment. The form is its temporary, visible expression. Or consider a challenge you face, a financial hardship, a sickness in the body. The personal self, the I, that feels separate, perceives this as a solid, threatening reality. It fights against it, fears it, and feels victimized by it. It prays to a God outside of itself to come and remove this solid, real problem. But when there is a glimpse of the truth that God is the only substance, your entire relationship with the challenge transforms. The financial situation is a set of circumstances, a form. The sickness is a condition of the body, another form. Your fear is a reaction in the mind, yet another form. The truth is that the only reality, the only substance, is the divine presence functioning as, in and through these forms. It is the very intelligence that animates your body, the very supply that constitutes the universe, the very peace that can transcend mental turmoil. Your prayer then ceases to be a plea for an external force to change external conditions. It becomes a quiet, inner yielding to the reality that already is. It is a turning within to acknowledge that this situation, however it appears, is not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is the presence of God as the very life of your body, the very intelligence seeking a solution, the very substance of the universe reorganizing itself. You are not a person trying to get God to fix your life. You are that life, and it is already and eternally the expression of God. You wait, not in passive hope, but in active, conscious recognition. You become still, and you listen for the movement of that substance within your own awareness. The answer may come as an intuitive knowing, a sudden opportunity, a healing shift in the body, or a profound peace that makes the outer condition irrelevant. The form changes when your consciousness shifts from being a victim of form to being a witness of the substance animating all form. This is the great transition from living in a world of solid, threatening objects to abiding as the conscious awareness in which the divine substance continuously manifests as form. The world does not disappear, but your perception of it is reborn. The tree is still beautiful, but you now see the life it expresses, not just the form it holds. The challenge may still arise, but you now perceive it as a temporary formation within the infinite, intelligent substance that you are. You are no longer at the mercy of a universe of separate things. You are abiding in and as the one reality from which all things derive their fleeting, illusory independence. This is the foundation of all true freedom. As this recognition of God as the only reality deepens, a profound and necessary upheaval begins to take place within your own consciousness. The personal sense of I, the central character you have believed yourself to be, must inevitably undergo a dissolution. This is not an annihilation, but a glorious and liberating submergence, much like a single, separate drop of water, realizing its true nature is the ocean and releasing its imaginary boundaries to become the whole. The personal I is not destroyed. It is seen for what it has always been, a temporary, functional construct, a useful instrument for navigating the world of form, but a complete misidentification of your true identity. This personal sense of I is the source of all your suffering. It is the voice that says, I am hurt, I am afraid, I am lacking, I deserve better. It is the perpetual storyteller, weaving a narrative of a separate self moving through a world of other separate selves, a story of gain and loss, praise and blame. Its entire existence is predicated on separation and comparison. But when you begin to abide in the awareness that God is the only substance, this personal sense of I begins to lose its authority. Its stories are seen as just that, stories appearing in the vast, silent space of your true being. They are clouds passing through the sky. They are not the sky itself. You can observe this mechanism at work in your most ordinary interactions. Consider a moment when someone criticizes you. The immediate, Visceral reaction is a tightening, a feeling of being attacked. This is the personal I feeling threatened. It immediately begins to formulate a defense, a counter-attack, or a story of injustice. It feels solid, real, and wounded. Now, imagine for a moment that you could step back from that reaction. Instead of being the one who is criticized, you become the awareness in which the criticism is heard and the emotional reaction is felt. You do not deny the words or the initial feeling, but you cease to build your entire identity upon them. You witness the personal, I, having its reaction, but you are no longer exclusively identified with it. In that space of witnessing, the sting of the criticism loses its power. It becomes a passing phenomenon, not the truth of who you are. The personal I has been relativized. Its solidity has begun to dissolve in the light of pure awareness. This dissolution is not a passive or weak state. On the contrary, it is the source of true strength and resilience. The personal I is fragile. It must constantly defend itself, promote itself, and fortify itself against the slings and arrows of the world. It is perpetually vulnerable. But when your identity shifts to the impersonal, infinite presence that you are, what is there to defend? There is no fragile self to protect. There is only the flow of life expressing itself in a myriad of forms, including the form of your body and personality. An insult does not touch the depths of the ocean, it only ripples the surface. A failure does not diminish the sun, it only casts a temporary shadow. Watch what happens during a moment of intense fear. The personal I contracts into a knot of anxiety, projecting terrible futures and feeling utterly helpless. It is completely absorbed in its own nightmare. But if, in the midst of that storm, you can remember to ask, to whom is this fear appearing? A miraculous shift can occur. You discover that there is an awareness that is aware of the fear. This awareness itself is not afraid. It is the silent, spacious background in which the fear is playing out. By resting your attention in this aware presence, the solid, overwhelming entity of my fear begins to dissolve. It may not vanish instantly, but it is no longer the totality of your experience. It is a cloud, and you are the sky. The personal I that was possessed by the fear has yielded to a larger, more inclusive identity. This process is the core of the spiritual path. It is the unceasing practice of dying to the personal self and being reborn as the impersonal presence. It happens in 1,000 tiny moments each day. When you choose silence over defending your opinion, when you respond to a provocation with compassion instead of anger, when you accept a loss without weaving a story of victimhood. Each time, you are consciously or unconsciously choosing the vastness of your true being over the limitations of the personal I. You are not becoming a better person. You are realizing you were never merely a person to begin with. The drop is joyfully, relentlessly returning to the ocean, discovering that it was the ocean all along. The dissolution of the personal I is not an arrival at a barren emptiness, but the opening of a new and more profound dimension of living. This is the transition from seeking an external God to living from the immanent presence. You are no longer a person reaching out for a distant divinity. You are the very medium through which that divinity expresses, moves, and has its being. The search is over, not because you have found an object, but because you have realized you are the subject of all experience. And that subject is one with the divine reality. Life is no longer something you do from a center of personal will. It is something that unfolds from a center of divine grace, and you are that center. This is the most practical secret of existence. You have spent a lifetime trying to live your life, to manage it, to control it, to make it conform to the desires and fears of the personal self. This is the root of all struggle. Living from the presence is the cessation of that struggle. It is the relinquishment of the role of the primary actor and the acceptance of the role of the conscious instrument. Imagine a flute. The flute does not decide what music to play. It does not struggle to produce beautiful notes from its own substance. It simply remains open, hollow, and receptive. The musician provides the breath, the life, the melody. The flute's purpose is to be an unobstructed channel for the music that flows through it. Your life, when you live from the presence, is exactly this. Your mind, your body, your emotions become the flute, and the divine breath is the constant, immanent flow of intelligence, life, and love. Observe this in the moments when life flows with an effortless grace. You are working on a complex problem, and suddenly the solution appears, whole and complete, as if downloaded from a source beyond your thinking mind. Where did it come from? The personal I did not laboriously construct it. It was received. You are in a difficult conversation, and the perfect words emerge, words of wisdom and compassion that surprise even you. The personal self, with its agenda and defenses, did not formulate them. They flowed through a deeper, quieter channel. You are walking in nature, and a sense of peace descends upon you without any cause. This is not a peace you manufactured. It is the peace that you are, recognized in a moment of inner stillness. These are all glimpses of living from the presence. They are moments when the personal will has stepped aside and the infinite has moved into the foreground of your experience. The great transformation occurs when you consciously invite this principle into every aspect of your daily routine. You are no longer the one who performs tasks. You are the space in which the activity of the divine is manifested. When you sit down to work, you do not merely grit your teeth and apply personal effort. You first become still. You turn within and acknowledge the source of all intelligence. You consciously become the flute, and then you begin. The work that follows may look the same to an outside observer, but the inner experience is radically different. There is no sense of a burdened door. There is a quiet, sustained attention, a listening readiness, a partnership with an invisible current of wisdom that guides your hands, your thoughts, your decisions. Fatigue diminishes because you are no longer drawing solely on the limited battery of the personal self. You are plugged into an infinite power source. This applies even to the most mundane tasks. Washing a dish. You can be the personal self feeling bored and resentful of the chore, or you can be the presence, expressing as the mindful, careful movement of hands in warm water, fully engaged in the sacrament of the present moment. Driving a car, you can be a bundle of tension and aggression, or you can be the aware space in which the journey unfolds, a calm and watchful intelligence navigating the flow of traffic. In every case, the outer action may be identical, but the inner world is either a prison of personal burden or a sanctuary of divine expression. The choice is always available to identify with the small, struggling self or to abide as the open channel for the immanent life of God. This is not a passive surrender to fate. It is the most active state of being, an active yielding, a dynamic receptivity, where every moment is met not with your own strength, but with the strength of the universe itself. When your identity shifts from the personal, I, to the instrument through which the divine presence lives, the entire texture of your daily experience undergoes a radical and palpable transformation. The world you perceive with your senses does not necessarily change in its outward form, but your relationship to it is reborn. The same events that once caused turmoil now unfold within a profound and unshakable context of peace. The same challenges that once triggered fear are now met with a resilient and impersonal clarity. This is not a change in circumstances, but a metamorphosis of consciousness, and it is the most tangible evidence that this truth is not a theory, but a living reality. Consider the experience of loss. To the personal self, loss is a catastrophe. The loss of a loved one, a job, a possession, or a cherished dream feels like an amputation. The story of my life has been violently altered, and the I at the center of that story feels devastated, diminished, and adrift. It clings to the memory of what was and resists the reality of what is. But when you are living from the awareness of the divine presence as the only substance, your relationship to loss is utterly different. You do not become cold or unfeeling. The human emotion of grief may still move through you, for love is real. But it moves through the vastness of your being, not the smallness of a separate self. You witness the grief without becoming the grief. Underneath the temporary storm of emotion, there is a profound recognition that the life which animated your loved one was never theirs personally, but was the one life expressing in a unique form. That life has not been lost. It has merely withdrawn one particular manifestation. The love you felt was a glimpse of the infinite love that you are, and that can never be taken away. The loss of the form becomes a heartbreakingly beautiful lesson in the eternality of the formless substance. Or observe the transformation of your relationship with desire. The personal self is a machine of wanting. It believes its fulfillment lies in acquiring specific objects, states, or experiences. This creates a perpetual state of lack, a frantic chasing of the next thing that will finally bring happiness. When you live as the presence, desire does not necessarily disappear, but its nature changes. It is no longer a desperate craving born of a sense of emptiness. Instead, it becomes a gentle inclination, an intuitive nudge from the infinite intelligence guiding you toward the next harmonious expression of life. You may still work to achieve a goal, but you are not attached to the outcome in the same way. The fulfillment is not in the future acquisition, but in the present moment activity of expressing the divine through your work. If the goal is attained, there is a quiet gratitude. If it is not, there is a trusting acceptance that the intelligence of the presence has a different, more harmonious unfolding in mind. The frantic chase is replaced by a peaceful, purposeful flow. Even your perception of other people is transfigured. The personal self is constantly judging, comparing, and categorizing. It sees others as friends or foes, as assets or obstacles to its own agenda. It is perpetually engaged in a subtle or overt war of separation. When you see from the standpoint of the One Presence, this entire dynamic collapses. You begin to perceive the same divine life, the same conscious awareness, looking out from behind the eyes of every person you meet. You see past the surface personality, with its fears, its arrogance, its wounds, to the essential being that is, at its core, identical to your own. This does not mean you become a doormat for harmful behavior. You can still set boundaries and take wise action. But you do so without hatred, without the personal reaction of being offended or threatened. You are responding to a distorted expression of the divine, not fighting a separate enemy. Your interactions become infused with a natural, unconditional compassion, not because you are trying to be spiritual, but because you are recognizing your own self in everyone you meet. The world ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a living tapestry of the One Presence, appearing in a breathtaking multiplicity of forms. The transformation of your daily experience is not a passive state of grace that, once achieved, remains static. It is a living, dynamic communion that must be consciously nurtured and sustained. This ongoing practice is the art of inner listening and recognition, the final and most crucial key that unlocks the continuous flow of the presence into your conscious awareness. It is the deliberate and gentle shifting of your attention from the noisy periphery of thoughts and sensations to the silent center of your being, where the divine reality speaks in a language older than words. This is not an esoteric exercise reserved for moments of meditation, but a practical skill to be applied in the midst of life's relentless current. The world, with its demands and distractions, is designed to pull your consciousness outward, to identify you with the roles you play and the problems you solve. The practice of inner listening is the conscious refusal to be completely externalized. It is the secret inward turn you make even while engaged in conversation, while driving through traffic, while sitting in a meeting. It is the question you learn to pose silently in the core of your being. What is here when I am not thinking about what is here? This is not a question meant to be answered by the mind, but an invitation for a deeper dimension of yourself to make itself known. Consider a moment of sudden, sharp irritation. A colleague makes a thoughtless remark. A plan falls through. A machine malfunctions. The habitual reaction is immediate and total. The personal I is activated, and your entire consciousness becomes a storm of reactive thoughts and emotions. You are, for that moment, completely lost in the storm. The practice of inner listening is the ability, cultivated over time, to introduce a moment of space between the trigger and the reaction. In that sacred pause, you do not analyze the irritation or try to fix it. You simply turn your attention inward beneath the churning surface and listen. You listen not for a voice, but for a presence. You feel for the bedrock of silence that underlies the noise. In that listening, something remarkable happens. The irritation, no longer fed by your full identification, begins to lose its power. It is seen as a passing weather pattern in the sky of your awareness. You have not suppressed it. You have transcended it by recognizing the vast, silent space in which it is occurring. This practice extends to your deepest fears and anxieties. The personal self is a master storyteller, weaving elaborate tales of future catastrophes. When you feel the cold grip of anxiety beginning to tighten, that is the precise moment for inner listening. Instead of following the terrifying story into the future, you drop anchor in the present. You feel the physical sensation of the fear in your body. You notice the frantic quality of the thoughts, and then you listen past them. You attend to the awareness that is aware of the fear. This awareness is undisturbed. It is calm, clear, and present. By resting your attention in this aware presence, you are doing the most powerful thing possible. You are recognizing your true nature in the midst of the illusion of fear. The fear may not vanish instantly, but it is now contextualized within a much larger, peaceful reality. You are no longer drowning in the fear. You are holding it in the ocean of your true self. This is the ultimate form of spiritual practice because it requires no special conditions. Your life, exactly as it is, provides the perfect curriculum. The noisy office is your monastery. The stressful commute is your meditation hall. The difficult relationship is your sacred text. Every moment of tension, every flare of anger, every surge of desire becomes an invitation to turn within and listen. You are not listening for a specific answer to a specific problem. You are listening for the hum of the eternal, the silent music of the presence that is the substance of all things. Each time you successfully turn inward and recognize this background reality, you are strengthening a new neural pathway of consciousness. You are etching the truth of your divine identity ever deeper into your being. This constant, gentle return to the source is what transforms a fleeting glimpse of peace into an abiding state of grace. It is the continuous renewal of the miracle, the moment by moment choice to hear the one song that is forever singing itself into existence as your very life.